Alright guys, so I wasn't planning on putting out a video today. I was going to let the channel breathe, but when there is big gaming news, we got to talk about it. And according to Kotaku, Call of Duty 2020 has gone through a major overhaul. Sources tell us with Treyarch taking over and planning Black Ops 5. So what this pretty much means is that whatever the Call of Duty for 2020 was going to be, whatever Sledgehammer was working on, has since been scrapped. Either they weren't far enough along, the ideas weren't coming together, the game looked like shit, or it was a terrible idea. I don't know exactly what would cause them to cancel whatever Sledgehammer's working on, but Treyarch's taken over and presumably making Black Ops 5. The craziest part about this as well is that they'd be roughly about halfway through the development of whatever this game was that they were working on, because as we all know, when it comes to Call of Duty, they're on a 3-year cycle. It goes Treyarch, then Infinity Ward, then Sledgehammer, and then back to Treyarch, and that's how it's been for roughly about a decade or so now. And obviously their last game came out in the fall of 2017, so as of this time this year, it'd be roughly about halfway through the development cycle, and whatever happened, whatever's going on, has since been changed, and it's going to be Treyarch now, making another Call of Duty like 2 years later. Next year's Call of Duty has gone through a major upheaval as publisher Activision informed developers this week the studios Raven and Sledgehammer, which had until now led the project, will no longer be in charge. Instead, according to 3 people familiar with goings-on at the companies, Treyarch will lead development on a new Black Ops for 2020. It's a significant shift for Activision's massive first-person shooter franchise, which is one of the most lucrative video game series on the planet. Every fall for the past 15 years, Activision has put out a new Call of Duty game supported by a stable of different developers who rotated duties as required. Since 2012, Activision has followed a 3-year cycle for its 3 lead studios: Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammer. The results have looked like this: Black Ops 2, Ghost, Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, World War II, Black Ops 4, and almost definitely some sort of Modern Warfare game. For 2020, Activision had originally switched things up, assigning the Wisconsin-based support studio Raven to take a leadership role alongside Sledgehammer to make a Call of Duty game set during the Cold War, likely involving Vietnam. As of very recently, that's changed. Now Treyarch, based in Santa Monica, California, is in charge of leading Call of Duty Black Ops 5 for 2020. According to those briefed on the overhaul, Treyarch will take creative leadership on this new Black Ops, while Raven and Sledgehammer will serve as support studios for the game, transforming the work they've done on their own single-player story mode into a campaign for Black Ops 5, which will also be set during the Cold War. This may be a welcome return for fans who criticized the lack of campaign in Black Ops 4. It will likely be a cross-gen game to coincide with the launch of the next PlayStation and Xbox, which are also expected in the fall of 2020. So kind of a lot of reading, but I wanted to get to some information first before we stop and talk. So I wasn't up to date with what the 2020 Call of Duty was going to be. Had no idea it was going to be a Cold War style type of game. And it's kind of interesting that Raven was getting a kind of lead developer role with Sledgehammer on whatever that game was going to be. It's since been changed down to just a support studio for this presumably Black Ops 5. That's still interesting because I've seen some people say that like Sledgehammer was fired and Sledgehammer's not going to be a part of it, but they're still working on this game with Treyarch for 2020. Kotaku's article goes on to point out how obviously Treyarch's not going to have the 3 years to make the next game. Instead, it's just going to be 2. But it's actually less than that because it's currently 6 months until November, which is usually when the Call of Duty games come out. Obviously, the game's going to drop in 2020, so it's actually a year and a half, which is not that long for them to develop a game. But it does seem like, of course, that they're using, I guess, a lot of maybe some of the assets and stuff because they're transitioning it into a Cold War style Black Ops game, which is kind of interesting because that means it's going to be old school, boots on the ground, probably a little bit closer to Black Ops 1, hopefully. This news comes during a strange time for Activision and Call of Duty. Although Black Ops 4 sold well at first, we've heard that it hasn't had quite the revenue tail that Activision's bean counters were hoping to see. Internally, Activision executives have started to talk about embracing free-to-play as a revenue model. Once anathema to the publisher, no idea what that word is, and 3 sources say, are looking into offering a free-to-play component for this year's new Modern Warfare, although the specifics may not be finalized yet. Some within Activision have remained resistant to the idea. The past year has also been rough for the San Francisco-based Sledgehammer. In February 2018, Kotaku broke the news that Sledgehammer's co-founders Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield had left the studio. Although Activision spun it as a promotion, saying they'd take on new executive duties, it was very clearly an ousting, and the two quietly exited shortly afterwards. Earlier this year, Condrey started a new Silicon Valley studio with the publisher 2K, where he's recruited dozens of Sledgehammer's staff. The studio has been hemorrhaging employees over the past few months, much to the dismay of those who remain. One primary reason behind this Call of Duty upheaval, according to 2 people familiar with happenings at Activision, is the tension between Sledgehammer and Raven, whose staff are said to have argued frequently during the past year of development on Call of Duty 2020. 2 people familiar with the project described it as a mess. Now both studios will serve as support for Treyarch as the publisher prepares to release Black Ops 5. Activision declined to comment. So a lot of reading, a lot of information to go over, but I'm learning this stuff with you guys as I'm reading this article because I don't really keep up that much with Call of Duty. I do like to play them. They are fun. They're one of the only multiplayer games that I play, but I don't keep up with a lot of Call of Duty news. But apparently, according to Kotaku and people that are close to the situation, there was tension between Sledgehammer and Raven on developing this Call of Duty 2020 game. And maybe because of that, they got super far behind, or it wasn't enough, or they couldn't stop arguing. So they're like, let's just give it to Treyarch. Treyarch usually puts out quality games. Even though people like to shit on Black Ops these days, and a lot of people shit on Black Ops 4, for me, every Black Ops I've ever played has been fun. I've liked 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4's multiplayer was kind of meh, but I really, really liked Blackout. I'm not super into Battle Royale games. You know, I don't hop on all the Battle Royale games that come out there. I've only really played PUBG and Blackout. So I'm not super into BR, but man, I played the hell out of some Blackout. And a lot of people hated on Black Ops 3 as well, but for me, that was my favorite of the futuristic Call of Duties. Between Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare, I by far liked Black Ops 3 more than any of those two. And when it comes to Sledgehammer getting taken off from like the leading developer on this game, to be honest, I'm kind of happy about that because I've never really liked Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer gave us Advanced Warfare. Advanced Warfare was really fun when I first played it because it was so new. Every Call of Duty was the same, right? Boots on the ground, 3-lane maps. It all felt the same, so people wanted to change. And to Sledgehammer's credit, they gave us that. They gave us these boost jumping, crazy-ass maps and gameplay. But because of Sledgehammer, and maybe probably because of Activision as well, we got loot boxes into the Call of Duty series with Advanced Warfare. It's their fault, whoever it is, whether it's Sledgehammer or Activision, they're the reason that we have loot boxes and supply drops and shit in Call of Duty these days. It's their fault. And then fast forward to World War II, I didn't like that game either. World War II was so bad. They changed so many things. It was nice to get an old school boots on the ground, old school feeling Call of Duty, but goddamn the division system and all that other stuff, it was just horrible, dude. And I've never particularly liked Sledgehammer, and I'm not surprised that this would happen, whether it's because of the internal arguing or maybe development being far behind. It might be the development being far behind, to be honest, because if you guys remember when World War II came out, it was missing a lot of stuff. I don't even know to this day if they even have leaderboards on Call of Duty World War II at all, because they didn't when I stopped playing the game. Anyways, guys, some pretty crazy news. We're not really a Call of Duty channel. I've probably done less than 10 Call of Duty videos the entire time I've been on YouTube. But this is a pretty big thing, because regardless of what people think of the Call of Duty series, it's always one of the big releases every year, one of the best-selling games every year, if not the best-selling game every year. So this is a pretty major change for the series, because we're expecting 2020 to be Sledgehammer, and it still kind of is, but they're no longer the lead developer, and it's not just a Cold War game anymore. It's going to be Black Ops 5. So it's pretty big news for gaming as a whole. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay up to date with more Call of Duty content. Not really. Turn on notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @TheDashingDavid. And my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys. Give me a smile, give me forever for a while, give me forever for a while. Quit acting like